All right. Well, after discussing cold openings for a minute, we've gone for the bland one. Welcome to Paul and Bryn's local ghost story project. We covered the murder of Sarah Ware in Bucksport, Maine.
Okay. So Sarah Ware was born in Nova Scotia in 1846. It's unknown when she moved to Bucksport and married her husband Edward Ware, but the two had 3 children, one of which died in childhood. The couple divorced in the year 1898, according to a daily newspaper. Now a divorced woman of 52 years old, and during a time when women were heavily scrutinized for having separated from their husbands, Sarah worked odd jobs to support herself and her children's livelihood. She would walk door to door, babysitting and housekeeping. Some say on the night of her murder, she had been walking in the night collecting payments from the various homes she provided services to. After that, the details become that of rumor. Some say on the night of her murder, Sarah had been playing cards with a group of prominent men, one of whom was William T. Trewergy, a store owner who Sarah had worked jobs for. Perhaps the fight broke out during a heated match, perhaps the tragic accident occurred, or perhaps Trewergy was just a psychopath. Emmerich Spooner, author of Sarah Ware Revisited, claims that Trewergy was a rough and tough kind of character, a man with a temper. Whatever the case, Ware was murdered on the night of September 17th, 1898. 2 weeks later, her body was found in an alder thicket near what are now known as the Miles Lane Trails. Her head bashed in, barely connected to her neck, and the rest of her body mangled. When her body was moved by authorities, her head was so thoroughly mutilated that it fell off.
Yeah, Trewergy was arrested years later for the murder of Ware, as a bloody hammer was found with his initials inscribed in the handle. There was a boy named Joe Fogg who confessed in court to helping Trewergy hide Sarah's body in the alder thicket, but then admitted he'd lied about the whole story. He was sent to prison for perjury, and Trewergy was set free due to this invalid and ultimately due to insufficient evidence. Fogg, while imprisoned, later admitted he was fearful of Trewergy and falsely claimed to have lied about his helping hide the body, essentially saying that the story was true and then he had reneged on it. For the next century, Ware's head remained in an evidence locker and her case was left unsolved. During this time, there are many rumors about how her body had been buried in an unmarked grave near Silver Lake. When the town expanded the lake in the early 1900s, her body was said to have been excavated and distributed into the lake. There are countless stories of people walking in the Silver Lake trails and experiencing a feeling of being watched, of seeing an apparition of a headless woman, or just feeling really creeped out. Bryn, you actually have like a personal anecdote to this.
Well, and I didn't know anything about Sarah Ware at the time that this happened, so looking back on it, it makes sense, I guess, but I had gone camping with a couple of friends on Silver Lake, and I remember them joking about, like, some ghosts, and I'm sure they said it was Sarah Ware, but I genuinely just didn't have any idea about it, so I was just like, whatever. It's fine. And so I was there, and we were, like, setting up a tent. It was getting dark. My friends were getting very drunk, which was wonderful. One of my friends, who was the most drunk out of everyone, just, like, was like, guys, I brought something fun, and pulled a Ouija board out of his backpack. And I was like, oh, great. It just seemed like a very quintessential, like, any horror movie you watch where, like, some teens are being really, really stupid. Like, that was the situation I was in. And I was like, awesome. I had candles in my backpack because, like, you gotta stay prepared.
Of course.
And so I was like, well, you guys can have these candles to set the mood, but I'm not participating in this. And so I went and laid down by the lake, and they were up a bit, like, setting the board up on a stump. It was 3 other people, and I don't know, they were like lighting the candles and getting it all ready, and they started to do it, and I had this like weird, unexplainable, overwhelming feeling of like dread, and like I closed my eyes, and I remember just like, I don't know, it sounds very nuts, but I like saw red eyes in my mind. I don't know. And I sat up and I was like, I don't think you guys should be doing this. Like, I just got a really, really bad feeling, and somebody else in the group was like, yeah, I got a weird feeling too. And my friend, who was the drunkest, was like, I'm not feeling anything. What do you mean? Like, aren't we just having fun? And I was like, cut it out. Like, knock it off. Let's not. So they put it all away. I was a party pooper, but then we all slept, and it was fine.
So you averted a crisis.
Yeah, either I averted a crisis or, like, nothing was going to happen. We'll never know, I guess, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be clear, there's no evidence that, like, her body was actually buried by the lake?
No, like, that's something that people just say. But
I mean, she was buried somewhere.
The only thing that I do know is that there were native, like, those were obviously native grounds, and there were people buried there. And when they did the excavations, like, there were bodies that just it was, like, a very awful thing that they just didn't respect. And so, like, obviously there's just some weird vibes there. Whether it's some, like, headless woman, I don't think so. I think that's kind of just maybe a story, but that was my experience.
Well, her head was released from evidence like 100 years later, and buried with her family in Oak Hill Cemetery in Bucksport. We don't really know if her head was reunited with her body.
No idea.
We hope. Someday, maybe, someone will find out. But for now, people who visit her gravestone leave offerings, nice rocks and money or mementos and things. And we went to the gravestone.
We did.
Well, we went to Bucksport looking for sources. We went to the library first, as one is to do. The Bucksport Library. We walked in, and they were very helpful.
Yeah.
When we told them what we were doing. Well, they wanted to be helpful. Yeah, they tried. But they had to be like, well, we don't have any, like, local stories in our library. And, like, the people who used to work here knew a lot about this.
It was interesting because, like, what I had mentioned earlier about Emmerich Spooner, he was the librarian for, like, years. Like, anytime I would visit the library, he was there with his mom, who was the other librarian. And he wrote all of these books about, like, Bucksport hauntings. And none of his books were in the library.
If only we'd gone 10 years earlier.
I know. But yeah, they didn't have anything.
They didn't.
They gave suggestions on maybe some books that would have some kind of information, but... Yeah.
Well, then we went to the local bookstore. Pet the three-legged cat.
Yes, there's a three-legged cat named Lucky there.
Adorable. And still didn't really... we found a couple books, but they weren't exactly, like... I don't know what the right word is, but... I mean, one had like a vaguely similar story, but it used a different name. Like, Ware was still the last name, but it had a different first name.
Yeah, like Sierra or...
Something
like that. And the story was kind of just a little... I remember I was trying to read through it, and there was like a romance involved, and there was a bunch of other details that just weren't. It was like a very fictionalized version, so that wasn't helpful.
But then we did actually go to Oak Hill Cemetery, and we walked to we had to do a little bit of searching to find the grave, but it was very peaceful.
It was lovely.
Yeah.
It was very well maintained. And yeah, her grave is probably, I think, the only one that I saw that had any sort of, like, things left on top of it.
Right.
That visitors left.
Right.
It just seems like ultimately people feel really bad for her, as they should.
Yeah.
And I think it has turned into this whole legend thing, but it's really just this awful thing that happened to a woman, and
right. Yeah.
has become a silly little story.
Well, thank you for listening.
Yeah. On that note.